Hello, my name is Mr. Davis, and welcome to our class. First, I want to talk about the chat in case you've joined our classroom's Google Meet. The chat is only to be used for questions. You can either type a full question into the chat or type the word question, and I'll call on you as soon as feasible. Or if you need to step away for a quick break, like a bathroom break or to grab a glass of water, you can type the word break into the chat. If the Google Meet is currently going, you can practice now by typing "got it" into the chat. Let's begin by talking about who is this Mr. Davis anyways. I was born and raised in California. I've spent most of my life in this state. I started off in the Bay Area, so a bunch of the cities surrounding San Francisco I lived in. And then in about the 7th grade, my father moved to Elk Grove and I moved along with him. And that is when I met my wife in the 7th grade. You can see her featured here in this picture. That's my oldest son, Logan, and my youngest son, Ben. I went to California State University, Sacramento, and I graduated in spring of 2009. I got a bachelor's degree in English. I began my teaching career back in 2009 at IBML. I then transferred over to Stuart Larson. Stuart Larson became Village Oaks, and I've worked here since the school has opened. I also recently got my master's degree from Fort Hays State University back in 2018, and it's a master's in educational technology. I like to watch movies, listen to audiobooks and podcasts, to read, to work out, to spend time with my family, to cook, travel, play video games, and bike. Let's talk for a moment about what Alt Ed is. Some of you may have been in Alt Ed for all of your high school careers, and some of you this may be your first exposure to it. First of all, we learn and teach the same standards in Alt Ed as any other high school throughout California and throughout the nation. While we still teach the same skills, we take a slightly different approach. Most, if not all, of your work is going to be completed during class time, which we'll talk about more in a moment. You're going to be provided organization support. Now, with most of our instruction taking place digitally, Google Classroom is going to provide most of that organization support. It's difficult to lose a Google Doc that's been passed out in Google Classroom. It's credit earning. A good reason or a good chunk of students are here because they need to make up credits. We are a school that allows you to not only earn credits for core classes, but for doing additional things, which we'll talk about momentarily. Most importantly, it is a chance for change. I don't care who you were last summer, who you were last year in terms of if you were the class clown who never did any of his work. If you're ready to turn it around and you want to graduate on time or near on time, this is a chance for change. Don't let how people perceive you put you in a box for how you're going to function this year in this class. It really is a chance, if you've made some mistakes in the past, to change. Let's talk about the differences between spring of last year's distance learning and the model that you're going to find this year in this class. So the main differences are three. One, you must sign into the Google Meet every day on time. That is how I'm going to mark attendance. If you are late, you're going to get a tardy just the same as if you were late to class. If you don't show up, you're going to be marked absent just the same as if you did not show up to class. Okay, you must show up on time. You're going to work during the school day with the class, so you'll have a normal bell schedule. You'll be expected to show up at the start of class, you'll leave at the end of class, and you'll work your way through a normal school day in a distance learning setting. I'd say the most important change from spring to now is that your grades do count. Anything you do or don't do will be factored into your final grade. Unlike the spring where, we couldn't bring your grades down if you didn't do the work, now it's just like a normal school time in terms of how your grades will function. You must complete work in order to get a passing grade. Anything you don't do will be counted against you. So let's talk about why this class. Who is considering going to college? Now you're going to take a survey, or maybe you've already taken that survey that kind of tells me your plans for after high school. But usually a good chunk of students, especially seniors, think college might be an option for them, though it's not the only option for sure. And we'll talk about the different options that might be available to you as the year goes on. But this class specifically, the first semester, the first 50% of it focuses on prep for college level English. Just making sure that if you think you might want to go to college next year, that when you enter into college, you are ready to do the work that's going to be expected of you. This is our last chance to get you ready for that work. The second semester, or the last half of the year, is entirely focused on your post-grad plan, figuring out once you graduate what you want to do after high school. Let's cover some of the classroom rules and procedures. The intent is not that you're going to memorize all of these rules and procedures now, more that we're going to talk about them, and then over the next few days and weeks as we're working together in the classroom, we're going to make sure that we follow these rules and procedures. We'll practice with them. I'll reinforce them by reminding you, but we're still going to talk about them so you have a general sense of what's going to be expected of you. There's only 3 rules. The first is to treat others with respect and dignity. I know that in a digital space, most of us interact in a digital space kind of in an entertainment fashion, maybe not in a professional fashion. During class times and in our interactions with each other, the expectation will be that we are interacting with each other in a respectful, professional manner. Okay, if you have a best friend that you say a whole bunch of horrible stuff to outside of class and that's just how you guys relate to each other, okay, that's fine, but not during class time. 2, be on task during class at all times. The way I'm hoping to structure this class is we will begin class together doing activities that require us to be together. And then as the class gets more towards the middle of the period, you're likely going to be given some independent work to do on your own. However, I expect you to be on task during those times. Finally, I'm going to follow all school rules and guidelines. Now, for the dress code specifically, I don't care if you wear pajamas. I don't care if your hair is messed up. In fact, you don't have to turn on your camera for this class, okay? But if you do turn on your camera, you must be appropriately dressed, okay? So that means guys, shirts on, girls, you know what that means in terms of dress codes and in terms of the expectations for that. That also means that if you are going to turn your camera on or in your interactions with students, even if you're just using your microphone, that there is no like explicit or inappropriate content that is in your room or in the background that's going to be featured if your camera is on, okay? Just like in a classroom space, everybody has a right to show up in a space that is safe and free from distractions. That brings me down here to the no cell phone policy. During class time, expect you not to be using your phone. If for some reason you must use your phone, your mom has sent you an emergency text message or something like that, make sure your camera is off, that you're not doing it where we all can see it, out of professional respect for me and for your peers. The final thing I will mention that is unique to this online environment is your avatar. Your Google avatar must be appropriate and not distracting. If you're somebody that's not going to turn on your camera during class, which is fine, we will all see your Google avatar, which means if you have something that is inappropriate or distracting, you need to fix that as soon as possible because that will not be allowed in our digital learning space. Now, if you choose not to follow a rule, I am not the kind of teacher that gets angry or screams or shouts. I'm going to tell you up front what will happen if you don't follow a rule, and then if you choose to break one, these consequences are going to be what happens. The first time you choose not to follow a rule, there'll be a warning. Possibly one-on-one, but in all reality, if you're doing something that's distracting the whole class, I might just pause the lesson for a moment to say, hey, Jimmy, knock that off, okay? You're gonna lose participation points, which we'll talk about more in a moment. I'm gonna make a note on Aries, and then I might remove you from the meet depending on what's going on, okay? So we're all gonna be in a classroom meet learning together. I might remove you for a few minutes until I can have a one-on-one conversation with you or until the office can have a one-on-one conversation with you. Second time, lose participation points. There'll be an action plan that you'll need to fill out. It's kind of like a contract between you and I about the behavior that's going on and what we're gonna do to fix it. There'll be a note on Aries. Again, I might remove you from the meet. Okay, if there's a third time, like I ask you to stop unmuting yourself and yelling and you keep doing it anyways, okay, you're gonna lose part points. You're gonna write a letter to your parents or guardians about the behavior and what your plan is to fix it. I'm gonna make a note on Aries and there might be a possible removing from the meet. If there is a fourth time, okay, At that point, I've given you 3 chances to handle business without me involving your parents. You wrote that letter to your parents or guardians, but I've not sent it, okay? But if there is a fourth time, okay, you're most of you are 16, 17, 18 years old. If we can't figure this out in 3 chances, then I will have to involve your parents. And what that will look like is you'll lose part points. I'll take the contract that we filled out. I'll take the letter that you wrote, and I'm going to send those home so you can't tell your parents I'm some crazy guy that had a bad day. They're going to see we've talked about it multiple times. They're going to get a phone call from me. I'm going to make a note on Aries, and then likely you're probably going to be removed from the meet if there's a fourth time, okay? I would say 90% of students, after the second time, if I've asked them to stop doing a thing, they stop doing it, okay? I'm a pretty easy to get along with teacher. Most students like having my class, okay? If for some reason there is a fifth time I have to warn you about breaking a rule, at that point, yes, you're losing participation points, and then I'm going to refer you to the office. And whatever that looks like in a distance learning space, maybe it's an in-school suspension where you're just doing packet work rather than joining live in our meets. There's likely going to be a meeting between you, me, and your parents, as well as the administrators. Again, I have every year maybe one kid that gets this far in the consequences. I think last year I had no students that got this far. I'm just letting you know that this will be the route that we go if you're not following the rules, if you're choosing not to follow the rules.